First grade mask field trip with Mr. M. Your learning targets are: I can observe by looking closely at masks from around the world. I can understand art worlds by experiencing a historical art gallery. And I can develop craft by creating a functional mask. Success criteria: so you should be able to say this at the end of the tour: I went on the tour of the mask exhibit. I picked one mask from the tour and did my best to recreate it on paper. And 3, I created a functional mask using found materials from my house. First graders, how are you? Mr. Montgomery here, your art teacher. It is wonderful to see you today. Now, this week we were supposed to go to the Fort Collins MOA, the Museum of Art, downtown, and check out the mask exhibit. Unfortunately, since we are doing remote learning from home, we can't exactly go to the Fort Collins MOA. But even though that's the case, there's no reason that should stop us from going on a field trip. So what we are going to do is I am going to take you on a field trip of the Met, which is the Metropolitan Museum of Art, located in New York City. We are going to look at an amazing mask exhibit that has masks from all over the world, and we're going to talk about some, we're going to look at some, and I'm going to ask you some questions about some and what you think about the masks, maybe what kind of materials they're made out of. My suggestion for you before we embark on our field trip is maybe get a notebook, something you could write a few notes down. Okay, I'm going to ask you a few questions during the tour, and I'd like you to write down these answers. So make sure you have a pencil and a piece of paper, and let's get ready to go. Now, I'm just going to give you a minute here to get your pencil and paper together. And remember, everybody, during this tour, you can pause and you can rewind the video if you need some more time. Let's get to it. Okay, our first work is a stage set design for the play The Mask. It was created in New York in 1926. It is painted with gouache, which is kind of like a watercolor, sort of, and metallic paint. And this is a great example of the decorative art movement called Art Deco, which was popular in the 1920s, which came from France. Now our next mask is entitled Queen Mother Pendant Mask. It was made by the Edo people from Nigeria, which is in Africa. It's made of ivory, iron, and copper, and was created in the 16th century, so that's in the 1500s. The mask is 9.5 inches tall and 5 inches wide. The artist has carved stylized mudfish and images of bearded Portuguese faces along the top of the head and the beard. I want you to take a second and look at the emotion on the mask's face. Does the mask figure look happy? Does it look sad? Serious? Our next mask is an example of a turtle shell mask. It's made of turtle shell, wood, cassowary feathers, fiber, resin, and paint. It's from the mid-19th century, so middle of the 1800s. And this mask is 21.5 inches tall and 25 inches wide. So it comes from the Australian Aboriginal people of the Torres Strait Island. And this mask would have been used for funeral ceremonies, and also would be worn to make sure that they have an abundance of fish and food for the coming seasons. This beautiful mask shows a human face with a frigate bird mounted on top of the head. Our next artwork is entitled A Mask Ball in Bohemia. It was painted in 1748, and it was painted in oil on canvas. It's a painting of a masked ball somewhere in Austria. Now, can you think of a time of the year where people in our culture like to wear masks? What time of the year is that? That's right. In October, during Halloween, people dress up in masks. So this is a good example showing that people have been wearing masks for a really long time. And a lot of times we wear masks for celebrations or parties, rituals. Masks can hide who we are and can hide our identity. Our next painting comes from Pablo Picasso. It's entitled Bust of a Man, painted in oil on canvas in 1908. This is an early example of Picasso's experiments with his movement called Cubism. Picasso was very influenced by Iberian and African sculpture. Here, Picasso has used deep oranges, rusts, and brown colors, very characteristic of African wooden masks. Now, our next mask is another example of a turtle shell mask. It is called a LIOP mask and was made in the mid to late 19th century, so that'd be the late 1800s. It's made of turtle shell, hair, other fibers, and pigment or color. This mask would completely cover the performer's head and face when worn, and this mask was probably used during funerary ceremonies to honor the spirits of the deceased, allowing them to travel to the island of the dead, which lay in the direction of the setting sun. Our next example is actually a photograph of a mask taken by American photographer Charles Schiller in 1918. Schiller was an accomplished painter, but began photographing private and public collections of artwork. And just like we do with our art, Charles Schiller was an important documenter of fine art. This is a photograph of a Dan mask from the Ivory Coast of West Africa, and most likely was a ceremonial mask made of wood. Our next mask comes from Papua New Guinea, which is located right next to Australia. It's just called mask and comes from the late 19th century, early 20th century. It's made of bark cloth, paint, and wood, and bamboo. It's painted in very bold white, and it's made of bark cloth stretched over a bamboo frame and would have been worn over the head like a helmet. Now, this mask comes from the island of Bougainville, and while the purpose or meaning of the mask is uncertain, the upraised ears, strong brow ridge, staring wide eyes, and barred teeth indicate that it may depict a fearsome spirit. Now, our next mask is called Bandha Mask. It's from the 19th to 20th century. It's an African mask from the Niger River region of Guinea and was made by the Nalu people. Now, the mask was made of wood, paint, and raffia. The mask shows a mixture of human and animal forms. The long horizontal headdress is composed of the face of a human being and the jaw of a crocodile, whose angular teeth are visible along the side of the mask. This mask was traditionally worn during dance celebrations to warn off things like animal attacks. Now, our next mask is another example of an African mask. This one comes from Gabon, a country on the Atlantic coast of Africa, and this mask would have been worn by male dancers of the Punu people. These dancers would stand on stilts, and the dance involved beautiful dance choreography and astonishing feats of acrobatics. This mask is made of wood and paint. Now, our next mask is entitled Close Helmet with Mask Visor, in form of human face. Now, this mask and helmet was made in 1515 from Germany. Notice the beautiful steel and gold metals. Helmets fitted with mask-like visors were popular in German and Austrian fashion in around 1510 to 1540. Such helmets as this were often worn in tournaments, during different types of parties, celebrations, and festivals. Take a second to look at the expression on the mask's face. What does he look like? Does he look scared? Does he look happy? Imagine wearing that heavy mask all day long. Now our next mask is a Japanese mask which dates back to 1745. It's made of iron and has a silk head covering on the back. This mask represents the guardian of the East, one of the 4 kings of heaven. I want you to take a second and look at the expression on this mask's face. Does it look happy? Sad? Maybe angry? Is this a mask you would like to try and wear? All right, friends, this is going to be the last mask of our tour. It's called Dance Mask from the early 20th century, made by the Yupik people from Alaska. Now, what materials does it look like this mask is made from? That's right. It's made of wood, paint, and you can even see some feathers in there. The mask is 2 feet tall by 2 feet wide. During the long, harsh winters in the Arctic, local people traditionally gathered indoors for celebration. These featured feasts and masked dances in order to maintain harmony between animal, human, and supernatural realms for the coming years. The mask, worn by costumed dancers, were often danced in pairs and represented a variety of animals, supernatural beings, and animal helpers. What would your spirit animal mask be? What I would like you to do now that we have finished our tour of the museum, I would like you to rewind this video. I want you to find one mask that you really thought was really interesting, and I want you to tell me one reason why you thought it was interesting, and I would like you to draw that mask from the computer screen. If you need some help rewinding this video, maybe you could ask for some help from a parent, and you can pause the picture on that mask, and I want you to do your best to draw that mask on a piece of paper. Now, once you've finished drawing the mask, I want you to take a picture of it and submit it into Seesaw. And something else I would like you to do is create your own protective mask for the Colorado Face Mask Design Challenge. Okay. Now, there's a few different options for what type of face mask you can use. If your parents have an old t-shirt, you can use an old t-shirt. So I actually have an old white undershirt here. Something that works really well for the masks is to cut off the sleeves. And if the sleeve will fit over your head, that would be great. But these are a little bit too small for my head, so I'm going to need to find a different way to tie this on. So I'm going to, as I showed you in the Kruse News, I'm going to bend the top down. Okay. And I'm going to make sure that it covers my nose and my mouth, but it's not too tight that I'm not able to breathe. We want to be able to breathe. Okay. And then I'm going to use markers and design the front of this mask. So that is my challenge for you, is to create a mask. It can be influenced by a mask that you saw on the virtual museum tour, or it could be just an idea that you have in your head that you really like. I would like to thank you for joining me on this amazing journey. I hope you guys are staying safe. I hope you're having fun at home. I hope you had fun today on our virtual mask museum tour of the Met. Enjoy your week, everybody. It was great to see you. We'll see you soon. Bye.